So, Mandy, I'm very curious. Please tell us more about your journey and what led you to where you are.
So I experienced a lot of what a psychologist would call as adverse childhood experiences or ACEs. And the more of those you have, the more likely you are to have symptoms of complex PTSD. All I knew is that I had a really crazy childhood and I suffered an incredible amount of anxiety and depression. Little did I know that I was actually struggling with the symptoms of complex trauma, which led to severe trust issues. Relationship difficulties, really unhealthy, toxic relationships, just not having skills to recognize my emotions, be able to communicate in an effective way. I didn't have these skills, and therefore I just kept repeating old patterns. I've always been a learner, and I've always wanted to figure out how to feel better. I'm like, how do I feel better? Like, I'm so sick and tired of just being this anxious, depressed person who's too sensitive all the time. And yoga, thankfully, I found that at a fairly young age. I was about 20, and it was definitely a slow process. So I'm 20 plus years into my yoga journey. But what the real catalyst for me was learning DBT or dialectical behavior therapy, which is traditionally taught to people who are diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Um, 4 years ago, in the beginning of COVID, I was on the hunt to buy a townhome. And my mother was also on the hunt to buy a townhome. And we're both single women, and I'm raising my son. And I thought it was going to be a really great idea if we joined forces. With COVID and the shutdown, like I really was so dedicated to just my family and to work. And I was sick of dating. And with COVID, it was like, yeah, let's just put that on the back burner. And so I moved in with my mom. We bought a townhome. And little did I know, it resulted in a very tough time. We had a very tough time. That's a very nice way of putting it. And what ended up happening is I had found out that she's actually suffering from what's considered borderline personality disorder. My whole life, I had thought that she was suffering from bipolar or just extreme depression. There's differences, there's major differences. And that's not something that we're going to go into today. That's for another conversation.
Yeah.
But with that realization and understanding that I basically, so she was a single mom, she raised us, she's my main caretaker. And so essentially what BPD is, or borderline personality disorder, is that this person was already a very sensitive child, and then they experienced something that they perceived as very traumatic. And they didn't have the proper coping mechanisms, and it puts in place some beliefs, like we talked about before. And these beliefs can really hinder the ability to have healthy relationships. One of those beliefs is that they can't trust people and that people are going to abandon them. There's this fear of abandonment. And this fear is so strong that they will, in fact, abandon the person first so that they don't get
Yeah.
it, right? So, anyway, I've learned so much in this process. And even though my symptoms are more in line with complex PTSD, I really benefited from learning dialectical behavior therapy because this trauma brain that some of us can struggle with, it's real and it goes into this all or nothing thinking. And how do we come to the middle and how do we get out of that catastrophizing way of thinking? DBT was the only thing that really helped. It was a legitimate tool. There were legitimate skills that taught me how to feel my emotions and communicate in an effective way and to ask for my needs. And that was something I could never do before. And that was super important. So it really has been such an important piece of my healing process. And that's why I sing it from the rooftops and tell everybody about it. Because I'm like, you got to know about this because it will change your world. It'll change your entire world. So anyway.
That's very good. Well done. Well done.
I would really love to encourage the people who have either listened or watched today to check out my Daily Calm Practice Workbook. It is 4 steps, and the workbook is something I put a lot of heart and soul into, and it's something I really believe in. It's my proprietary method. It's the system that I have come up with, developed, that has helped me to overcome the symptoms of trauma and addiction and alcoholism. And so I've created a little workbook. My approach is not to dig into the weeds of where this stuff came from.
Yeah,
My approach is to learn new skills on how to move forward.
yeah,
And we start by really looking at what are our values and what are our priorities, and using that as a foundation to learn how to communicate more effectively, to have more connective relationships. So, if you are a woman who experienced childhood trauma, who has struggles in relationships, struggles to trust people, deals with emotional dysregulation or getting triggered easily, this is specifically for you. And I really highly recommend that you check it out. So it's on my website. It's holisticevolutionshala.com and then slash daily calm workbook.
wonderful. Thank you ever so much. I really
Oh,
appreciate
thank you
that.
so
Thank
much.